All right, welcome back to the House of Wolves podcast. This is your host Deontay with my friends Jalen and Josh, and we are got some topics for you guys today. Um, Before we get started, don't forget to like if you enjoyed this commentary. But yeah, thank you for listening, and let's get right into it. So Jalen, Josh, how's life?
It's good. Uh, Stuff straight. Just getting back in the swing of things. Had a little 2 week break for school. I know y'all probably tired of me talking about school, but y'all gotta understand school is all I do. So,
School, school,
um,
school, man.
yeah. So everything's straight though. Just getting ready for exams and stuff like that. That's about it. So
All right, what you got?
Yeah,
What you got, Josh?
same here. Still got a little bit of a not vacation, but like downtime since class hasn't restarted for me. So, just trying to enjoy what I can. Can't go outside, but can relax a little.
All right. Forgot to close the door. Sorry, people. But all right. All that squeaking. That's my chair. Don't worry about it. Put some WD 40 on that thing. If that picked it up. All right. Well, ain't nothing happening for me. Everything is still the same. Got a job. Working a job. It's great. Yeah. Playing a lot of games, which was it's been cool because I've worked from home now for been home for forever. Feels like at this point, but um, at least have more time for games and more time to just chill. I ain't put no YouTube videos up in a minute, so don't worry, people. I'm gonna get back to that shortly. Um, Binged or watched a lot of shows. Got through The Undoing. That was really good. Got through some. I watched all of Cobra Kai, which I didn't think I was gonna enjoy, but because I didn't like the Karate Kid that much, but it was not bad actually. Um, I thought they should have somebody should have owned a gun for all them fights they got into, but yeah, it was pretty cool. But I ain't been doing nothing. I just been playing games and watching TV. Uh, but first topic that we wanted to kind of talk about and start off the pod was Final Fantasy. I know y'all tired of us talking about Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy and the Square Enix fanboys, that's what we got, man. We talk about Final Fantasy because it's probably the one thing that we all kind of have entertained at least. I wouldn't say enjoyed, but we all entertained it. Um, Back to the older ones to the newer ones, and we talk about Final Fantasy because that's something that we got a common ground on at this point. But recently I played through Final Fantasy X, and I played through Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I kind of played a little bit of. Is that Lightning? Is that 13 or 12? That's 13, right?
13.
Yeah, I played some of 13. Probably got to like chapter 2. I think chapter 1 is extremely long though, so I'm not sure if I'm out of that one. And I booted up Kingdom Hearts. That's not a Final Fantasy game, but I booted up Kingdom Hearts 2. I was going to try that again to see if my opinion changed. But it probably won't. But I'll play it anyway. It But yeah, first one I want to talk about is Final Fantasy X. Oh, and 15 as well. I
10.
re-downloaded it, but I ain't played it. But 10, yeah, let's talk about 10. 10 was interesting, and I actually got some rather embarrassing news yesterday that they actually was a feature that I never used all 78 hours of my gameplay. Um, Never used the turn indicator. I didn't know that that was actually a turn indicator. I just thought it was something for targeting the enemy, and I had no idea that the purpose of that was to tell you whose turn is next. So I was always guessing and swapping out characters to heal my people because I didn't know when the enemy would attack. So yeah, that would have made the game a lot easier for me. But maybe I just played on the unknown hard mode. I don't know. But that's what I did. It was still fun. I still enjoyed it. Um, but some of the things that obviously 10 is going to show its age when it comes to graphics, it's going to show its age when it comes to voice acting. Um, you know, some of the save points not being correct, some of the things that they made you do after save points that kind of made it feel like it was a lull. Sometimes you had to grind to get stronger. So all of that stuff definitely showed the age of the game. But for that game to come out so long ago and still be so potent and good today, it kind of tells the testament of it. Story wise was okay. I say that. At least for me, this isn't a review or anything. It's just me just stating what I saw and what I've seen. Uh, the re- the the gameplay was fun. At least they made you have different roles. Like you had a debuffer, you had a attacker, and you had a healer, and then you had sometimes that you had those the curse effects, and they give you poison and silence attacks, and then you had your spell people. So you also had these roles that you can kind of create in order for you to have a better go at killing enemies and things like that. And it had this synergy to it that a lot of the previous or current day Final Fantasies did not. Like 15 just didn't have any synergy, so you didn't really care about magic. Didn't really have ability to level up everybody and have them play in a unique way. They all just kind of swung their swords around. It's pretty boring. So those types of games were from that going from that stark of a difference of role playing and turn based to that open world, free form and fighting style. It's kind of a pretty big leap. I'm not sure if it was the greatest leap for them because they didn't implement it well, at least in 15. Um, but yeah, so 78 hours later, I enjoyed my gameplay. I don't know if everybody takes that long to play it, but that's how long it took me to beat it. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. There's a few times where I lost about 3 hours of gameplay, which was very annoying, and I had to sit there through the cutscenes and having to fight big bosses and go through that. That's very annoying. But again, this game came out very long ago. I think it was 2005. I think
2000 like one. Right?
2001. Jeez. Okay. So even worse. So 2001 really. And yeah, that game still kind of holds up on its own. I feel like they could have did more with the remaster or the the redefined edition or whatever they want to call it, the repackaging. They could have did a little bit more, but overall, I enjoyed the time and I beat it. So yeah, I I guess I know Jalen beat it. I know Josh beat it. What do y'all feel about Final Fantasy X per se?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, I know like earlier this week we had talked about some like the slow moments. I feel like the game started off kind of slow to some capacity. It kind of have like a miss. Do we want to talk about like spoilers at all, or
I think if they haven't played it by now, it's probably just yeah. We could talk about
okay,
spoilers.
okay? Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like the game kind of had like some sort of like mystery, which was kind of compelling, but it was like you hit certain points and stuff like that. You don't really know what's going on. You kind of understand your purpose and stuff like that. So I actually did. I played Final Fantasy X twice. I had played it when they had released it on a PS3. Um, I didn't get through all of it on there. I kind of hit one of the like a like a drier point. I think it was like around when you fight like the chocobo eater or something, like you're like in a not in a forest but like in some
In the
Greenlands, the
plains.
Plainlands,
yeah, the
yeah.
green plants, yeah. So I had actually stopped playing around that time because I didn't feel like it was like super compelling. Like Deontay said, the voice acting kind of bad. Yuna's, I know Josh kind of said something about Yuna voice actors kind of a little off or whatever. She did seem a little off in that game. Like she just
She was
seemed like
sad.
she was unenthused and
Sad.
confused and delayed with, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I really was thinking, I'm like, I don't know if she has some sort of like mental like delays or anything like that, but I mean it could add to her character potentially. I don't really, you know what I'm saying? It's Final Fantasy, anything could mean anything. Um so I just went ahead and played with it, but I don't know. The second time I had played it on the PS4, I actually was a little bit more compelled. I kind of had to find a little bit of enthusiasm in certain areas, and I started finding the game to be a lot more enjoyable when you start understanding the sphere grid a little bit more, because
Hmm.
it was real basic and you didn't really understand it. Like it just, you basically go this route that they want you to go, and then when it start expanding and stuff, it started getting you a little more versatility in your character. You start learning their roles, you start getting like better weapons and stuff like that, and the story starts to pick up a lot more. And I think that's what really compelled me to like play it or whatever. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, especially towards the end because stuff started picking up fast, like I said. But yeah, I mean it definitely had a pretty good story, and it's coming from a quote unquote Square Enix fanboy, and I know. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not the best critic of games because I be playing some games that be like borderline garbage, but I might like the gameplay. So to each his own.
Yeah. What you got, Josh?
Yeah, I never played 10 when it came out. Only touched it when it was like the HD re-release. And I've always heard people say like 10 is either really good, but it's just like a big step down from the games that came before because like that's when the company like got bought out by a different company and a lot of stuff changed. Overall, I can see why people like it, but and also don't like it. It has a lot of I think memorable events. Like I think back on it, like I think about the wedding and all that type of stuff, and the the cutscenes. Um, so I enjoy the overall experience. I still don't think 10 is like one of my favorite games or even one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, but it's just has really memorable events that makes it unique. All the stuff with Sin and how they actually explain what a spirit is, and you
Hmm.
know I like that. I mean, most of the characters I enjoy, but overall they're most of them are pretty, I say, one dimensional.
Hmm.
Some of them do get a little bit more depth than others, but they're okay. um it's I still think a decent Final Fantasy where it doesn't have too many, I say, negatives. Like the gameplay is
Hmm.
pretty um interesting. The upgrades, I don't like the spear grid, like the whole upgrade map, but it gets its job done. And
Yeah.
you got some unique summons. I think that's one of the games where summoning was a big deal. So I think they did that well, which they completely messed up in 15. So that's something we
Yeah.
can talk about.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I think it's overall decent. Like I can see like if people played it as their first Final Fantasy game or played it when they were younger, they might love it. Um, but it's pretty good overall.
Yeah. I think so as well. I think it was like one of the uh more. I think gameplay wise is more interesting, but obviously I enjoy the more modern style of gameplay, and I think a lot of things that I enjoyed in modern games kind of resonated with me a little bit more in the newer remake of Final Fantasy. But 10 definitely, if I was playing in that time and I thought, wow, these graphics are revolutionary, and now they like block figures, and then they actually got fingers and all that stuff, and it I could see how people would think that was a compelling entry. Now going back with it, I can't really take my lenses off for the new and the modern, but I definitely still enjoyed my experience, and I put 78 hours in it. uh I still don't think it's like, I don't think that was my favorite one. I think my favorite one is still, which is pretty sad because I would thought I would find something else that I would enjoy more, but it's still gonna be the 7 remake. I beat that one as well. Uh, I don't. It's not that 7 wins off of. It just wins off polish. I guess I just don't like uh Final Fantasy games. I haven't found one that I really was like, dang, it shocked me, or dang, this really pushed me back. But I haven't played them all yet, so I have to continue to play. I have to keep deep diving, and that's pretty much one of my goals is to kind of figure out what makes Square Enix Final Fantasy games great, because I still haven't figured that out yet. Um, I do enjoy particular parts of Final Fantasy games. Seven really was the combat for me. I didn't like the feeling of over overshooting the time, how much you have to put into it to kind of win, or to feel like, because I already know it's a 4 part game now. It didn't feel good to really have that filler stuff in there. I was totally fine with the side quest, but around like it's like 2 chapters in the game that just felt like they were unnecessary. They had you fighting additional boss. Like the dude wanted you to test his animals, and I was just like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? And it's like it just made me feel like they weren't appreciating my time put into the game. They wanted me to, grind more, or they wanted me to fight more enemies to hit a quota versus really just giving me a compelling story and game. I don't like that. But well, who am I to talk? I play Destiny, but it wasn't interesting, at least for me. The gameplay was definitely interesting, and it kept me there. And they made a lot of great decisions, giving you the ability to use different proficiencies after you level them up in Final Fantasy VII. The character design and the characters' interactions were pretty good. Um, I enjoyed everybody's banter. I enjoyed people's conversations when they was finish fights, and then like even though Cloud and Barrett were really close, he still act like he act like a douche the entire time. He said that was nice. And yeah, whatever. I'm like, bro, ain't y'all cool now? Why are you still saying this in game? But they never changed the dialogue. But little stuff like that was just kind of like, yeah, it was cool at the beginning, but you should have changed the dialogue by the end. Y'all supposed to be friends now. But I enjoyed Final Fantasy VII Remake probably the most because of it's the most modern, it's the most polished, and the story can be told in a way because they always had pretty okay stories, but the story is now being elevated by the character design and their presentation versus just relying on the dialogue. So Final Fantasy X, if that was to be remade, that would probably be my favorite because of the gameplay as well as the story. They, I still kind of, I haven't finished Heaven. All I know is the beginning part, and that's probably why I'm judging it in that way. If I finished the whole thing, I probably think that was the best game I played. But they don't give you the whole thing, so I have to judge it that way. And yes, I know you have to kind of, if you really want to appreciate Final Fantasy VII, you kind of want to play the original, or you want to know everything about the original because then you can realize what has changed. But again, that ain't my job. Final Fantasy Square Enix love to give you another job to play their games, and I just can't get with it. Uh, and if you don't believe me, think about Kingdom Hearts. Think about Final Fantasy 15. They love to give you an extra job, but it's kind of their most robust and well put together package. But if 10 came out with a remake, that would be the most robust and well put together package. If they didn't like break it up like they kind of did this one. So if they just kind of put it on standalone remake of that and it had all of the content in there, I wouldn't be as upset as I would be for Final Fantasy VII, because Final Fantasy VII, even though it was a great game, even though it was really fun, I already know I'm missing the thirds of a third of the game uh, because of them simply wanting to expand it and create the world, make the world bigger, make the world more expansive, kind of elaborate on a lot of the things within the world, which is great. And I feel like I'm now experiencing something that most people didn't, and how they experience it is going to be different than me. So now I get to experience it with this new fresh coat of eyes or whatever. So some of me don't want to look up the new stuff and don't want to look up the past stuff and like figure out what was changed and what was not because I have this point of view that I can keep, but part of me also wants to know what happens next, and that's where I'm probably going to end up relying on and just going back and seeing what everything has done and how it's kind of changing because all of the mystery about the changes don't really matter to me because I don't know what changed. And me getting filled in on some of the changes really helped me appreciate some of the conversations more, some of the changes more, some of the understanding of the whispers and all that crap. So it's a little bit of a unique situation I'm in, and I want to keep it that way, but maybe not because I'm very eager to see what kind of what 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 my feelings would be if I knew everything like everybody else.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, how do you
Uh,
guys feel about that?
so are we okay with
Spoilers, yes.
spoilers at this point? Okay.
Final
You want
Fantasy
to go first,
Seven.
Jalen?
Yeah, we gonna
Well, I
just go
mean, we
spoil
talked
it.
about it a couple times without spoilers, so I feel like now is the time to like actually go into it.
Yeah.
You can go ahead.
Um,
Or
I
my bad. I was just finna say one thing about the I didn't want to go backtrack what we was just talking about. Just a little like piece with Final Fantasy, like what Deontay saying, like the whole hype behind the series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just real quickly, I think the hype behind the series is because they was like doing certain things with the games, and when they was like coming out with the '90s and stuff. Well, coming out with in the '90s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously after Final Fantasy 10, they started like slowing down a little bit. Like 10 came out in 2001, 11 was an MMO, 12 had came out at some point in time. I don't remember. I think it might have been maybe like 2005 or something maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm trying to think, 13 ain't come out until 2010. So it's like the game's been spaced out.
Gotcha.
And I don't feel I feel like they just kind of got more of like a cult following behind them. So they not really because I personally don't see like a huge hype behind the Final Fantasies. I just like the story that some of them show, and I don't go back and play the old ones. People love seven. Seven don't got no voice acting. Y'all know how I feel about voice acting. I played Dragon Quest Seven, put the game down because it ain't had no voice acting. Like it's a dated system that I can't get jiggy with. Basically, like I can't.
Can't
I mean, that's
entertain
the
it.
simplest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not entertaining. Like reading dialogue, that's fine. I can do that. But I mean, like you said, modern. You can see the luster behind 10, and I think it's good that it aged better than some other games. But like
Mm-hmm.
going back and playing 7, you're not going unless you playing that purely off nostalgia and stuff like that. You're not gonna really enjoy the game. I mean, I had a hard time finding
yeah.
the doggone ladder in the game, like you know what I'm saying, because of the way the graphics was. So
Yeah.
but that was just a little, little caveat. I digress, but I was just saying that to say I empathize with what Deontay talking about, especially somebody who like 4K and 8K, 16K TVs and HDR and ray tracing and all that other type of stuff that I couldn't even begin to tell you what it means. So
Yeah, it's important at least for me. Um, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
No, I can comment on that too because I think a lot of the hype with Final Fantasy is the fact that they went from Final Fantasy 1 to 15, and it's like it's been around for a long time. Like
Mm-hmm.
some of those first games, probably when they came out, were the best stories that people had seen. I don't think that all of them have lived up to that like history. Like some games are really good, some are only okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that overall, I would say maybe with like a couple of exceptions, every Final Fantasy game that has come out has been the best in their genre, like compared to other Japanese RPGs. Because like if you play like the Tales games or like Sword Art Online and all these other RPGs that are out now, like most of them are like garbage
rip
or
offs.
they yeah, and like Final Fantasy at least had historically has tried to like do something like new where the combat is new and interesting, or they got really good graphics, or they got really good voice acting.
Yeah.
So that's I think why they've always been on top as far as like in Japan, because like nobody is really coming close in Japan with like Japanese RPGs, with like a couple exceptions like Xenoblade and stuff. But yeah, I would say that I really liked 7 remake.
Mm.
Uh, I would say it was. I think I already said it, but it was one of the best games that came out in the last generation, and I do have to acknowledge like some of that is because of me being a fan of Final Fantasy 7 because like you said, it Square Enix expects people to go in with certain knowledge, and without that knowledge, it's probably a different game than what I played.
Yeah.
And I can't say like what's right or wrong. Like I can see the why they did it and I appreciate it, but I can also see like people who, you 7 years old or you 10, you pick this game for Christmas or whatever and you don't know what's going on. I mean, that's just the reality for some people. But I think that the game overall, like you said, well polished, like the voice acting was good. Um Graphically, obviously not
The
the best
greatest, but
game
it's
that came
definitely
out, but
decent.
it looks really good. You understand
Mhm.
um, the art and direction of the world. Like you can see like this is supposed to be like a big city and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I appreciate it. I think they did a really good job, especially compared to like their last couple of games, like 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3. Like this feels like even though it's not done, it feels like a finished game, not just like they threw it together in 1 year and put it out.
Well,
um,
I can't knock 15 because 15 has some really, really good moments in the game where you felt like, well, geez, like that whole scene where you kind of the dude comes like he's like a rock or whatever, and then he just starts becoming
oh
human
well,
and
yeah,
he's
like
like
that looks
those
in.
type of scenes were amazing for what they were, but the game was just surrounding it was bad. So I like
Yeah,
they still had those speculative moments where you like, wow, this is really impressive. um, Seven didn't really have that. I mean, they had some scenes where it was like it felt more Devil May Cry-ish, and I was like, this guy is going nuts on his motorcycle, and it reminds me of Devil May Cry and their scenes and how spectacular they can be with like just regular items or whatever. But then you
yeah.
have those specular things like 15 where they had that stuff in it because that's the first time I seen anything like that in a video game that you could play on that wasn't like in God of War. So it was kind of like this thing coming down at you, very like huge, big, and these huge enemies that you can actually run up to and interact with was very unique in that way.
True, but those
So
boss fights they looked nice, but they played like trash,
terrible, yeah,
and it didn't like matter to the rest of the game.
yeah,
So I mean, it had those moments, but overall, like the package, they couldn't put it all together where it felt cohesive.
yeah,
And like you said, in 7, you don't have that going on in this part of the story because it's
mm-hmm.
like the first 30%. But
Yeah,
what was there, it felt, big enough.
yeah,
I have to say, I do, except for that one chapter, I do like all the new slash filler stuff that they added. Because like this part of the game in the original, like it's like 5-10 hours. You go through all of the same events and then you leave the city.
mm.
But like they added a lot more that made it feel fleshed out, like you didn't just rush through this area.
Like it was
So
important, like the people was important there, and they all dying, and they made you feel for them. Like at least
yeah.
everybody got away. Some of the sectors five and all that stuff, you had like the ability to get people to survive, but it definitely made it worse when it was happening. I was like, bro, what's going on? Why are my people dying? Yes, because I've been hanging out with them or at least interacting with them for such a long period of time versus if I was hanging out with them for 10 hours, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. I'd be like, okay, this is how we started our adventure. Let's get it going, people. But now I feel like, dang, I want to know what's going to happen in there. Is everybody going to be safe? What is going to happen with the whole thing? But now I'm more focused on what's happening in the past to try to fix what's going to happen now. Obviously, I still didn't get the story by the end of it, so I would literally need to go look it up to kind of piece it all together because me coming in with fresh eyes, all the new stuff, the whispers and all that stuff that's changing the world and changing the story, all that stuff I couldn't understand. I wouldn't understand unless they told me that, and they never did in game. So I have to literally go look that up. And I still don't understand like why, what were the motivations, and uh, because that's not it hasn't been talked to about or
for
like
for who?
even like the whole the motivations for what's his name, Sephiroth. I don't understand his motivations, nor do I understand how he slashed one of them, and then it was one of the weird guys he had at the beginning of the game. None of that stuff makes sense to
So
me. So
yeah,
yeah.
well, I can tell you what's going on in that game, what they say, but might not make sense. Like when you get to Shinra Tower and that chapter that you say you don't like, which is Hojo's uh experiments, whatever, you going
Mm-hmm.
around doing the levers and things like that. Like that whole chapter was expanded. I like you said, it was too much filler, it was too long.
Mm-hmm.
But the point of it is like the the lady, like the body or the head that you see there is the bad guy of Final Fantasy 7. And like the reason that they're highlighting her there is because like you don't learn much about her in the beginning of the game, but now you're supposed to see how she is connected to Sephiroth. And um the main thing is like Sephiroth is following Cloud for reasons, I'll just say. But um throughout the whole game, nobody else sees Sephiroth when Cloud is having headaches or flashbacks or whatever. Nobody sees him. But that's the first point in the game where Sephiroth shows up, Cloud sees him, and everybody else reacts because he's actually there. All those other times, nobody else has seen him. And you don't notice that unless you know that most of the time this is just in Cloud's head. That's why Sephiroth is bothering him.
Well, they do
Um,
kind of do that when every time they ask him, "You okay?" and then nobody knows what happened. Like he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I'm like, bro, just tell him what's going on with your stupid brain. But
Hey, I was thinking the same
I was
thing, bro.
like,
I'm
bro,
like, bro, just talk.
why are you pretending that you're not going through a mental breakdown right now? He's like, "Oh no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine." I can't stand Cloud sometimes, but I was just like, whatever. But I mean, I could depict when he was there and when he was not, but it
mhm.
didn't make sense when he like stabbed Barrett and like one of the whispers went into his body, and I was kind of like, I don't understand. Is he controlling the whispers? Why can't he see the whispers around him? It just all was kind of confusing, but you kind of explained it a little bit more to make me, understand what was going on, but at the same time, the game didn't explain what was going on. So it just felt like I was
Well, they
being
did. Like
well,
Aerith literally explains
they
what the
explain they're
whispers are.
changing them and they're stopping stuff from happening, but they don't explain why Barrett why Sephiroth couldn't hurt him. They don't explain that, and but he could
Because
hurt.
he wasn't supposed to. Like that's not what's supposed to happen. And the whispers are supposed to keep time from changing. So the people that are supposed to die,
Well,
they're supposed to make them die. So when uh Wedge it like gets dragged away by the whispers is they're trying to make sure that he dies in that scene. And with the things that they stop, they're trying to stop the things that are not supposed to happen. And the whole final battle, the reason that you fight the whispers is the party is deciding that they're literally going to change fate. So the whispers are fate, quote unquote, and they're going to fight it so that they can have the freedom to go ahead unrestricted and change what needs to be changed.
but what about the whole remember when the whispers were trying to stop them from meeting up with the additional party, and then they were trying to
Yeah,
stop them from
in chapter 11 when
when they
or
broke
what
through?
yeah, they were trying to stop them because what was happening in the game is you when you beat the ghost and stuff
Hmm.
in the train yard, you're early. Like you're there before the destruction of the sector 7. And the whispers are literally trying to slow you down so that you don't have enough time to stop sector 7. Because if those whispers were not there, the party would have been fast enough to get to the top before they could hit the button. But now in the actual game, because of the whispers delayed them like 5 minutes, when they get there, the Turks are already there at the top, and they got to fight the Turks, and they end up losing. So they're trying to stop them from saving Sector 7.
Hmm.
So didn't I don't remember the game that well. I thought the whisper saved Wedge from dying.
Uh, well, when he falls off the thing, um, because he has the hook thing, he survives this time. Which is weird. I think that's just like a new addition. But they put him in the where'd they put him? In the underground area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's after he died. So that one I can't explain, like, because he was already supposed to be dead, but the second time they moved him or quote unquote saved him. So I don't know why that time he survived. That's probably something they're gonna explain later. But the first time he should have died.
Wedge OP is confirmed. Top tier. Ultima. Ruby weapon. Not just...
Yeah. So
um,
yeah,
yeah,
I think it's a again with all of these games, I feel like they make you want to pull your hair out because they try to make you literally do homework to figure out what's going on, and it doesn't have to be like in your face. This is what happened, but to literally not know that the whispers aren't originally, which is fine because if they're not originally in the first game, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't care. But tying it all together is kind of really difficult when you're getting piece information the entire game. So you're just not even getting the
yeah.
full story the entire time. And even when you
Honestly,
get
the
the
ending just doesn't make sense if
right,
without context.
it
And
doesn't.
because
So
like for me, like you don't know how hype niggas got when Zach showed up and when he didn't die because the whole starting point of Final Fantasy VII is Zach. Like I said, it's like if Naruto's dad didn't die and he survived into Naruto, that would change the entire story because with since Zach did not die in that scene, Cloud shouldn't have gone and started the beginning of the game by himself because they were literally traveling together to go to Midgar, and Zach died. So Cloud have to go by himself, and then he ended up meeting Barrett, and then going through the whole story. So that's one point. Um, but also, like I said, Cloud is a liar. A lot of the stuff he talks about, he, I wouldn't say liar. He basically has brain damage.
mm,
Um, so a lot of and things he's thinking about are not correct because he thinks they're real or he thinks that's how it happened that's not really how it happened. Basically, a lot of stuff he talks about is what Zach did, not what Cloud did.
uh,
And so there's no point to show him at the end if you don't know who Zach is. Because it doesn't matter if he survives at the end because you don't know who he is. Same thing with Sephiroth fight. You don't fight Sephiroth in the original at that point, at the end. And the last thing that he says, he's talking about stuff that happens in the movie that came after this game. So it's like you, you can still enjoy the game, but the story is not written without that homework. And I don't know, like the only way to tell that story is to not change it. Like I don't know how you can mess around with timelines and stuff without having that previous knowledge.
right. Yeah, that like I said, that makes sense.
I
And
feel like, oh, my bad.
oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I agree with the whole having a compelling story. I just rather have it in the story and like explained in a way that's like maybe if they even provided flashbacks on like the history of the game or started with like okay, so these events happened, but let's and then like they gave you something to kind of go
So if
to.
they put the homework in the
Yeah,
game,
in the game,
so
like
the YouTube video they just put it in the game.
whatever they need to do to kind of give you a more understanding of the story. And then because it's not gonna spoil anything because they're changing stuff. So that there alone would allow me to kind of be on the same page as everybody else. But it's not. So really I have to judge it off of what's in the game, and if it's I'm looking at solely what's in the game, the ending was confusing, and there was not really much um, there for me to grasp to be interested in the next one. Even though I know it's probably going to all start making sense at the end, but right now there was nothing at the end of that game that made me feel like, oh, I gotta play the next one. Oh, I'm interested. I'm on nail biting. This is like more so. If the game played better than it was before, I'll play it again. That's all about it is. It's not like, and I don't have to play it as soon as it come out because I'm just not interested enough in the story yet. Because I don't care about what's going on. All I care about is the gameplay and whatever her name is. I don't even care about them. I care about Tifa, I guess. I like Tifa as a character, but I don't like Tifa as like somebody that's. It's not enough for me to continue to play the game. That's not enough. It's like no, I have to have something else. Cloud is okay, but Cloud is he's very stubborn in his ways. More, you know what I'm really interested in seeing if Barrett get back to his daughter. That's what I'm interested in seeing. If Barrett actually survives and his daughter is fine, that's it. And that's what I was interested in when they were looking for his daughter. And I was like, I know she ain't with these dang on ghosts in this stupid train yard. So that was more interesting to me than anything else that they did. So that's not good in my opinion. But at least that was all there. I was introduced to Barrett. I was introduced to his daughter. I saw the relationship with his daughter. I saw her go missing. I was looking for his said daughter. And then at the end, he left his daughter. So all of that was in the game. So I could follow it. And it was easier to follow than what was going on with Cloud. What was going on with Tifa's part. Because she had like she couldn't tell me what was going on with her feelings for Cloud. And then Aerith, she just all types of random being this new being or whatever. So yeah, Barrett was the easiest one and more compelling character to me because he was fleshed out in a way that made sense.
Yeah, because I guess it makes sense because he doesn't have a backstory like everybody else
Yeah,
does.
he
So
doesn't. So he's just a character, and his motivations are very understandable in there. It's right there in the game. He's very stubborn.
uh,
He wants to save the world, but that's what it is. So
what was you gonna say, Jalen?
Shoot, I forgot. I was just finna say something about I think it was going towards like a direction about like how the story and everything pan out.
mm-hmm.
Um, I felt like it's like this a bad thing, but it's kind of to the point where when I play Final Fantasy games, I don't expect to have like a full grasp of the story without doing research on
Mm-hmm.
like any of the games, just because I feel like the games start off real like standard, and you can buy all right, boom, boom, boom. Like you can take the game for what it is, but like when it starts to change and starts to just do the fantasy stuff. I mean, the game fantasy as it is, but when it go to fantasy times 10, you just take it for what it was. Like I still don't understand the stuff that happened in 10.
Yeah.
I still don't understand the stuff that happened in 13 or any of those series, like 13 2 Lightning Returns. Like, 12 wasn't as bad. I felt like 12 was a little bit more down to earth, but towards like the end point of 12, I just didn't understand like how this dude got this strong. Like, it was just kind of like, all right, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna just take it for what it is because like it's Final Fantasy. I guess they got to get radical to some capacity, and I mean, even Type Zero. When I was playing Type Zero, I was just like, okay, it's at that point where I'm not gonna understand unless I go do research and like really read into something that the game shows. So like when you're talking about Sephiroth and stuff, hey, as much as I like Final Fantasy VII, I cannot tell you how Sephiroth keep appearing. They be talking about he in his conscience, he everywhere, he's Genova. As long as Carl got these cells, like it's just I just be like, all right, man, he can't go away. Like he in Kingdom Hearts, like he can't go away. Like Sephiroth is always gonna be here. He's a ghost. He can attack Carl whenever he want. He'd never go away. Like I just leave it as that because they don't. I mean, I'm sure there's um, a logical quote unquote. I would loosely use this word
Yeah.
for why he keep coming back. But in that movie, Advent Children, when them three dudes fused and made Sephiroth, I was just like, all right, it's at that point again. I know I'm watching a movie, but the movie can do the same thing the games do and get to the point where it just don't make sense. I mean, Kingdom Hearts
Yeah.
did too. Like, so,
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. Like every Final Fantasy game has that point where it's too much, and it's basically you have to go to the wiki if you want to like get the clear breakdown of how everything works. Like I think that's why 10 became more interesting to me because like I read after I beat the game, and so like oh that makes a lot more sense and things like that. Like Sin kills people all the time, and people die like around when they 20. So everybody in Final Fantasy 10 gets married super early, and that's why when you look at people clothes, like all the women are wearing like bikinis and things like that because they're trying to get married super early before they get killed by Sin. um, and just like that stuff, you're not gonna get from the game because they're not gonna talk about it. You just gotta read about it later, which is fine. I think there's some things that are in 7 that are not clear, but it's not clear just because the game is not done. Like obviously, when all three is out, it'll make sense because like Sephiroth, like there's a reason why he shows up, and it's I think it's pretty clear. It's not like weird stuff, but it's not explained in part one.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean overall, I just say like regardless, I think that since I had that backstory and that knowledge, it does get like an extra point or whatever for my score or whatever because I can see how well they wove all that extra knowledge into the game.
Hmm.
Um, and that literally made the game better for me because it, it made the characters more interesting. It made characters I didn't like I didn't like Cloud. Now I like Cloud more, um, as well as his voice acting. But because they Square Enix did a good job of building a better character for him within the game, while also leaving room for new stuff. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay. Well,
um,
I think I think overall I can probably give it a. I think I said it 8.5 out of 10. Just fine because it's still compelling enough to entertain you gameplay wise, story wise, in some aspects. But I mean, you may have to look up other things once you're done. But most of the time, when you're interested in a certain topic or game, you probably look up stuff after anyway. If it's not like blatantly clear. But yeah, I think overall, I would I have to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Really enjoyed the gameplay. The combat was really good. The the characters, the writing, you know, their banter. I would say I can't really go to the story because I some points I really just didn't understand it, but I understand the motivations of getting around and doing things, but at the point of like the overall picture, I didn't understand it that well. But this, banter, getting around people, talking to people, doing side quests, understanding what the motivations of some people were, and how we can get through to certain things and getting stuff done, or even the whole honeybee club thing was a very unique experience. Uh, which was interesting. It was all interesting, but just the overarching story was really was confusing. Uh,
yeah. Um, how we? I mean, we got time.
yeah,
Talk
we
about
got
something else. So you're gonna keep going.
yeah. Um, we can talk about
I was
something.
gonna. I
Go
was
ahead.
gonna ask you. You you enjoyed it like 8 out of 8.5, but do you feel like that's I don't know. I just want to ask, like you said earlier, you don't think that you'll be excited or looking forward to more.
No, I won't, but I will play it. This at least gives me the opportunity to say I'll play it, but it's not. I'm not looking forward to it. Because if it's more of the same, I'm going to be confused by the end of it. I am going to have filler stuff that I don't want to do, and then I'm going to be not so interested in most of the characters' overarching stories, like I am now. So uh, I don't really care about most of the characters' stories, but I enjoy them as characters. is that weird to say? Because it's like I enjoy them being present in my party, talking to me, and my reactions to them, but I don't care about their motivations. Is that weird? Um,
I mean, it makes. I mean, it's normal. Like there are a lot of games that, like I just played Dragon Quest X. Like I didn't care about most of the party's story
mhm,
or like what they care to do about. Like, one dude's going back to his dad, and his dad is mad at him. Like I don't really
mhm,
care, but I enjoyed him as a character. That's fine.
yeah,
I guess the weird thing about Seven is the thing that people love is the characters and
mhm,
their stories, and I guess where they cut it off, you don't have that, and that's why the next game, when they go deeply into the backstories and explain like what Tifa is actually doing and why she's acting like she's acting, then it makes more sense. But it's just like, yeah, in this first part, she's just someone like a good gameplay character.
yeah. She's really strong. I really like
She's nice and
her. Mhm,
willing to help out, but she doesn't really do anything for herself because she's too busy like taking care of the Marlene and stuff like that. So, it I can understand that because like well, it's not a character arc. That's the whole thing. Like
yeah,
you
it's
want to see
just
their character arc, and this is the beginning of that character arc, and you don't get anything from it unless you have like, oh, I already knew what she was doing in the last game, so I can see something there. But like, yeah.
yeah, and that's what I don't want to kind of spoil for myself. It's like the mystery of it all because uh, but the mystery hasn't captured me in the way I thought it would be because simply because of how deep rooted it is in the previous history of the game. Now that it kind of shows me that yeah, you probably wanted to know this stuff anyway. So either you can give up that opportunity to kind of go in fresh, or you can go in with the past knowledge of most people that really help them enjoy it more. So what would you choose? Blue pill, red pill. That's kind of deal I'm with right now.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, and that's why I'm not. Probably if I looked up everything and I kind of got the motivation to see it, it'd probably be a more of a looking forward to it than highly anticipated. But right now it's just not really. I mean, if I can catch it for another 25, I'll play it again. But I'm not. I'm not gonna run out there and get it. I mean, I spend money on garbage anyway, so it's not like I couldn't pay for it early. I just don't see myself being like, yeah, I need to get this now. I mean, if y'all are enjoying it, I'll probably do it just because we can talk about it. But more than likely, it's not something that would be motivating enough, at least for what I've seen or what I've done, to motivate me enough to say, yeah, I need that. Hit the, hit that Rennie. I
Man,
need that.
God.
But
So this comes from somebody who waiting for Just Cause 5 to come out.
I'm not waiting for Just
Man,
Cause 5. I'm not waiting for Just Cause 5 to come out, man. I ain't played one in a while, but
Man,
yeah. Yeah. It's. I'm definitely waiting for God of War 2. So I'm Dying Light 2. Dying Light 2 look good though. So there's games I'm anticipating.
Dev
That's
Hell.
probably don't.
Mm.
Dev
Yeah,
Hell.
yeah, yeah. That's definitely one of those Dev Hell games. I'm so disappointed. Man, they put out a 35 minute, they put like a 25 minute demo. Like, the game really told us what was going to be happening and like what we were going to be at. And then they just, like, how are you 2 years later, like, still developing or even in dev hell? Like, I don't understand. They're trying to be ways too expansive, which I can see them doing because they they probably are trying to get not out. They're trying to get out the box of just another game. They're probably trying to get that top tier level of game, which is fine because it makes the game more enjoyable. They already were, first person, so they had to make a lot of animations and things like that to kind of make the world seem fresh. And you obviously see how difficult that could be if you're trying to go for realism and you're trying to go for all this extra stuff versus like Cyberpunk. But that's what they kind of want to do, and they was bringing that to in 2019. They was bringing that a while ago. So I just hope I hope it's worth the wait, and hope they actually actually get out of dev hell, and I hope they write a great script because it seemed like a lot of the their actions and all that stuff mattered. So I'm very hopeful for that game, and I'm very much anticipating playing through that game thoroughly. Um, and like I said, I would definitely give Final Fantasy more shots because I have I liked enough, or at least the past stuff. I liked a cohesive story. Once the cohesive story was completed, I enjoyed it. So I would say the same thing if Final Fantasy VII is up there with the story and they feel like that was one of the better stories of the Final Fantasy series. I would probably be more interested in seeing how that plans out. So my interest will be piqued at that point where people are hyping it up and we're seeing the secondary stuff. We're seeing trailers about what's happening next. Maybe they get me to go into the anticipating. But right now, no.
So what
It's
homework you about to do?
um
None.
I ain't about to do no homework. I think I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it like it is because, like I said, I really don't like what they do with their games. They really don't like how they make people. I really don't like it. I don't. It's not.
Well,
I don't
let
appreciate
me
it.
rephrase it then. Do you actually feel like it's homework or do you actually enjoy this stuff? Because it's like people will read 800 mangas of One Piece, but all most of that is filler. Whereas like if you're enjoying it, yeah, it's quote unquote homework, but if you enjoy the thing that you do, would you still do it?
Um,
You've been watching One Piece
no.
for a long time.
I mean, you see me with Destiny. I don't read all the lore. I don't read all of it. I read some of it that's interest to me. Like I'll go look up the Thorn. I'll go look up the last word and how that came to be. But I'm not gonna look up everything, and that's what they kind of want you to do. So I'm not. No, I won't do that because, and I played that game way more than I played any other game. So, and that's definitely my favorite game ever. So, and I
But
still won't do it.
you still do homework for Destiny. Like
Yeah,
they don't
I would
explain
do.
how the guns work or how to get them. They don't explain any quests. So you have to go to YouTube to learn how to play the game.
No, their quests are pretty simple now, but before, yes, the I used to have
Man,
to go to YouTube. I go to YouTube now for
the gun
mostly
mods and all that
cheats.
stuff,
Yeah,
or
cheats
not?
like
Yeah.
glitches, and I do look up game. I do look up weapon reviews, so I guess that is homework. I guess because I'm looking at whether or not this is intriguing enough of a weapon, but they. It's not their job to tell me whether or not this weapon is worthy of my time. I guess that's me being competitive in PvP saying, okay, do I really want to grind for this said weapon? But I guess that would be really difficult for them to do is say, this is a top tier S class weapon. You might want to get this one, but maybe they could just put that in there. I don't know. But that would
I
be the same
mean,
thing with Borderlands, kind of
they don't
like,
show you what the pinnacle weapon is. Like that's
yeah,
nowhere
they
in the
do.
game, right?
No, they do. It's a quest. You can just pick it up from Shacks.
Oh yeah, that quest. Yeah,
Yeah, you just pick
yeah.
up this
It's so
quest from
many quests
Shacks.
that I just don't know where anything is.
No, but I know where it is because I play it. But it's like you just go there, you go to the markers. They give you markers. It's not like that game is more chores, and they want you to know where the chores are. They don't want you to not be confused on the chores. Like the only thing that they ever done was like the zero mission for the sniper. And those are fun to do because they don't happen so often. The sniper for the Whisper of the Worm, and then for the Outbreak Prime. Those were the only two where it's like they just dropped something in the game and they didn't tell you how to do anything. So I mean
Yeah.
raids too, but raids are a little bit different. So um I guess you're right. I mean if you are interested enough, you'll do homework on it. I'm just not interested enough, I guess. And I don't do it often. Square Enix feels like they want you to do it way more than any other company, in my opinion. Maybe that's not the truth, and everybody has like some type of form of end, because even though I really enjoy Cyberpunk, by the end of the first ending, I was like, stupid. Why did I die? Okay, let me figure out how not to do this and how to get to the next endings. So I did homework on it. So yes, you're right. If I'm interested enough, but at least the story before I got to the ending was compelling enough. At least the characters I was introduced to was compelling enough to say, I don't want this. I don't want this to be how it ends. So let me change it. Final Fantasy just left you at that part where you kind of starting your journey. So if I'm not even starting it yet, what compel me more to come back to start it? That's what I'm saying. It's kind of like it's just hard to give you 1/3 of the game because you said it's 3 parts, not 4 parts, right? 3 parts.
Well, I don't know what they're gonna do for the last
Oh,
part, but I feel like it should at least be three, because
okay,
like I said, this is literally just the first time you leave the city,
right.
and so this is clearly just like 1/3 of the game.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess you have a point there about homework and whether or not you get the you want to do it. I just don't like that it's like huge important parts of the story that would make you feel better if you kind of had this in the game or if you had this in there. Um, that critique will never go away from me, and it's always going to be that way. But um, no, I think I want to continue with the fresh eyes approach, and see how I feel about it at the end. And then at the end of the game, I kind of go back and see. I obviously I'm gonna go and get the explanation by the end of the game because most of the time the explanations kind of give you all the backstory. But then once I figured out that explanation, I just watch what happened in the first original Final Fantasy, and then kind of give you they give you a comparison, what's the differences or whatever. Then I just kind of, oh, okay, I see this, why this happened. But I would hope by the end of 3 parts, extra 3 parts or extra 2 parts or whatever it may be, that I have that understanding on my own, and they're just filling in small gaps and not the whole bigger picture kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm worried is they're well, I don't think they're gonna do that, but let's say they change the game like a lot, whereas the ending is completely different. Like nothing
Mm-hmm.
happens, like completely different from the original.
Mm-hmm.
Then the whole ending might not. I guess at that point it should make sense
It
about how
should
they
because
got to
they
that point,
started
but
you
it's
like
not
it's a new
gonna
game at
make
the point.
sense. Yeah, but it's not gonna make sense in comparison to the other thing. Like they can make it make sense in the game, whereas like they pick up this special sword and go back in time, blah blah blah. But it won't. You won't have that reference for the other thing. So I just don't know how they can do it. I don't know.
Um, yeah, no, that makes sense because you think they're going to heavily rely on your previous understanding of the old game to kind of see when they change stuff and when they explain
Well,
stuff and when they don't explain something, kind of
when I
deal.
brought up in game before, it's like they literally put you in like the Avengers 1 or Iron Man or Thor 2 or whatever. And they don't explain what's going on in Thor 2. They just show you that Thor went back to Thor 2. And without knowing that, you can still enjoy the scene. He's with his mom and stuff like that, but you don't know why he's there or what happens or things like that, or why he's even crying because you didn't see Thor 2. So it's like that, where it's like if they go continue this story and they change stuff, and it's
But
just not
he
gonna
has
make
no
sense
knowledge
without
of
that.
that, only Sephiroth, right? So they still have to pretend
No,
like Cloud doesn't have any knowledge of the changes,
he
right?
does. Well, he does because he literally sees the future, like like in
Wait,
the
that's
final
his
battle.
superpower? Are you serious? That he
No,
got
no,
to.
no, no.
Oh,
It's not a superpower. Like when you're fighting the big Kingdom Hearts monster at the end. Um, and every time you damage it, they see a vision of the future. So literally everybody sees the future. But before that, Cloud also sees some things that happen in the future that he shouldn't know. And Aerith also knows the future. Also, Red 13, the dog, he also knows the future, and Sephiroth. So there's literally four characters that know things that they shouldn't know, and if they are able to figure it out or to figure out how to change stuff, then they can literally change the future.
hmm. So we
Like
already got some
Aerith knows
agents in there.
everything, and she's hiding stuff. Like she literally knows everything.
Well, they kind of explained that she knows everything. Like she knows what's going to happen because she was like, "All right, are we going to be able to save this?" And she was like, "No, I'm just going to do everything I can to help you guys because
Yeah,
I already know it's going to collapse." So they kind of explained that already to me. I didn't know 13 could do it because all he talks about is
Well, when
um
she touches him or something, she
remembers
like,
everything,
yeah,
shares. Okay, because he
Erica on
started
some bull.
talking. She seemed OP to be honest, but she was started talking to him, and well, he started talking, and then he kind of had extra knowledge that he was like, oh, she kind of, I was enlightened or I wasn't aware, and I was like, that's weird, but maybe I'm just go with it because I know I can't. I don't know if they trying to explain that this character in the future is going to have a big importance, but obviously he is. He's one of the party members now. Um,
yeah,
but it was just that stuff. So I I still followed that Aerith was that girl because she was definitely the one that was going to be able to tell me what's going to happen, and maybe she developed more, and then she starts to really start to showcase that she can really try to save us or change how she or manipulate time or whatever. Maybe that's something that they introduce later on, but right
yeah.
now with new characters still going into the second one, I would think that they would still try to flesh out that's that kind of that understanding. Maybe not what's going to happen, and like maybe she starts to talk about what she sees. Like this is what happened in the future, but this is how we're going to change it. So I would think that they would do that for the character, unless they just start to pull some bull and they just started not explaining nothing. But well, they
Hmm.
could because they didn't explain nothing in Final Fantasy, so this that first one. So maybe. But I'm hoping that with my non knowledge that I can still get through that game and still have a good time. I think I will because the gameplay is pretty cool. Um, but um, let's not try to give them any um, I wouldn't say any cheats, I guess, because if I do that and I look up everything, I feel like I'm giving them the the ability to not do it the right way, how they should do it. It should be in the game. If I start looking up stuff and I fall into their hands of, oh, let's do this, I can't judge it in a way where I feel like my 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 thoughts and my processing of the game is accurate because I have been basically uh manipulated into going back and looking at stuff. Because right now I have this opinion only because I haven't seen everything. And if I did see everything, I probably would have a different opinion. So I want to keep that opinion because you have a different opinion than me, and you always will because you know everything. So,
Hmm.
in order for me to play devil's advocate for this video game, I would rather not be on the same side of that because then I would be pretending as if I knew stuff or understood stuff that they mentioned in there, even though I shouldn't have because I didn't know about it. So that's kind of how I want to look at it now, kind of deal. And I do that because I really don't care. So, um, yeah, that's kind of how I want to look at it right now. Have you looked up anything, Jalen, or stuff, old previous stuff?
About Final Fantasy 7?
Yeah.
Mm, nah, not really. I mean, I played like halfway through like the original one, and I mean, I seen Advent Children. I played. I ain't beat Crisis Core. I got to the end of the game.
He's
Um,
okay. So yeah, he's tainted.
yeah,
Oh
I already know most of Final Fantasy, like what goes on about everything. I just don't. I just never really understood where Sephiroth keep coming from. Like, and I could look it up, but I just didn't really care to because I just accepted for what it was. But like, I'm sure I can find like a logical explanation. I just, you know, I know enough about Final Fantasy 7, like when people were supposed to die and stuff like that. So I was picking up on a lot of the stuff the game was like putting out. I just didn't like. I probably wouldn't know it as well as Josh did because I didn't, I didn't look into it that much, but I had a pretty good understanding of like what was going on and when Hojo was supposed to die and when Biggs, Jesse, and Will, stuff like that. So
okay. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, that's how I wanted to kind of leave it because I think that'd be more of an interesting conversation than to have it where we just all on the same page. Um, and I can do that because again, um, I'm looking at it from that. I'm not trying to critique them. I'm just trying to uh give that perspective, I guess, that conversation perspective, because I don't really think me not having all the context is a good way to review or discuss anything, but it will give me the ability to have a different type of conversation or a different perspective when you guys do tell me that, and where I was when you didn't tell me that information or when I look it up. So, um, still an 8.5 with a little bit of information that I did get additional. Um, it would have been an 8.5 before the additional information anyway for me because of the gameplay. So, still the same for me. And but yeah, um, as of now, we're at an hour and 10 minutes. So we still got some time, but we can end it here. We've been talking about Final Fantasy, so we could just leave it as the Final Fantasy episode because that's all we talked about. But yeah. Do y'all have anything else that you guys wanted to kind of discuss, or are we good with leaving it with the Final Fantasy episode?
Um, Real quick, Josh, what's your favorite Final Fantasy game? Kind of like all the side stuff. Um, Both. What's your favorite story game and what's your favorite gameplay game?
For gameplay, it's uh, 12. I just think that's the best um, overall like RPG and like combat system that they made. It's I mean, obviously I wouldn't say the story is the best, but the gameplay they absolutely do things that no other Final Fantasy game has done. The best job system, the best level up system, the build variety, and all that type of stuff. So, well, I would say Zodiac Age, which is the remake, because they added a lot of stuff to it to make it the best. And story, um, I don't know. I would say I'm leaning towards 7, but it's not the obviously complete story. So I don't know. I enjoyed 13. I enjoyed 10. I I I guess 14. That's the best answer because it has the best overall story
The
compared to other
MMO,
games. Well, the last 3 quote unquote expansions,
Heaven Sword, and all that
Heaven
good stuff.
Sword and Shadowbringer, absolutely have like really good writing, and it's a complete story, and then they move on to a new story. And so I feel like it's good because they are able to introduce new places, new characters, write an interesting story, and end it. And you don't need a lot of extra stuff for it. So,
Huh. Okay.
Okay. Fair
what
enough.
about you, Jalen?
I'm trying to think Final Fantasy games. I think my favorite one gameplay wise will probably be 7 Remake. Um, I think they could have did some things a little bit better. I don't like how you can't switch your party, but I understand. I mean, well, to some capacity, I guess. But I think 7 would probably be my favorite gameplay wise. I did like 12 gameplay wise. I just felt like at certain points, like I just kind of felt like it was hard to manage everything that was going on. I had to keep turning the speed down, and I could turn it up and stuff like that. But that's not a knock and stuff. It's just don't let you like times 2 speed everything, which is fair.
Mm.
Um, so I think 7 probably be just because of the fluidity of the combat. I liked how when you switching your character, when you or not switching your character, but when you put a command in and stuff like that, the screen used to gray out, but like the music would still play. It's something
Mm-hmm.
minor, but it did it so fluid. So it kind of kept you engaged in the battle versus like if you play Final Fantasy 15. Um, I guess you can kind of call that a wait mode a little bit. When you play 15, you can play it in wait mode,
Mm.
But it didn't do wait mode the same as like seven did. Seven still made you feel like you was engaged in the battle, and you need to act quickly. You need to act quickly in 15, like when you get towards some of the like in game stuff. But like, I just felt like it wasn't as much like magic involved and like abilities and stuff. Like you felt like it kind of really did a whole lot. So that's my thing about it. I think Seven did a pretty good job, and then everybody had their own unique dynamic to them. Um, I really like how Tifa played. She felt the most fluid. She felt like the most fluid character you can play with, and you could just like do anything. I guess kind of an equivalent. The way I play with Mario, Mario can do a lot. He got a lot of versatility. I feel like I could do that with Tifa to some capacity.
Yeah, definitely.
Story wise, I'm trying to think. Story wise, Final Fantasy. Obviously I ain't complete all of seven. Uh, Crisis Core, but Crisis Core had its dry moments. Don't get me started with the encounters that kind of put a damper on the story. For
Yeah.
me at least. Um, I think my favorite story for Final Fantasy might be. I think I might have to say 13 because I really enjoyed the world of 13. I know they didn't tell it the best way because of like how you play with two characters and stuff like that. But like when you got to like Grand Pulse and like started understanding what was going on, like the dynamics of the world, how it had that like futuristic aspect to it. I feel like they did a pretty good job of keeping the story like focused.
Hmm.
When it wasn't in those dry points. I mean, the dry points had purpose to them because the whole thing of the story was, you got branded. They trying to figure out like, hey, we need to do something like quick, like, and everything was like they was always. I feel like to some capacity they was always acting with urgency, but I could be
Hmm.
remembering it wrong too. But they didn't want that. They need to complete their focus before it's too late, before they turn into Lassie or whatever. So I felt like that time crunch on it kept the story focused, and that's what I think I really liked about it.
Hmm.
Versus like in 10, obviously they got to do certain things, but they trying to solve a mystery and they just floating around and stuff like that. And you trying to figure certain things out, but they keep digressing and oh, let's go play blitzball and stuff like that. And it just was like,
Yeah. Um. Okay. Well, I only played the one, so 10. Story wise, gameplay wise, I enjoy sevens the most. The remake at least.
Well, you play 15.
Boy,
that game
stop.
don't go. That game don't go nowhere.
Yeah, 15. No, story
You ain't like
wise,
that story when that girl died for no reason,
that game was
Nah.
but they got
goofy.
married at the end.
Man, that game was goofy, dude.
Fast forward into the future and just dark world. I'm just like, man, I don't even know what's going on, bro.
That game was stupid. But I enjoyed 10's story and I enjoyed 7's remakes of gameplay. 10 at least, had a full fledged story right then and there. I'm pretty sure once I beat 7, that might be the more compelling one because at least I know what's going on when they're doing scenes and like, man, 10 was just all over the place. I was like, bro, they should have just told me in the narrative or at least like in the title, in the subtitles, whether somebody was happy or sad because I could not tell it by their faces nor how they were expressing their lines.
Mm.
It just seemed so weird. And then the infamous infamous
Scream.
laugh.
Oh
Ha
yeah, that
ha
laugh.
ha ha! I'm like, bro, what is
Yeah,
going on in this stupid game? But
the ambition.
yeah,
Mhm,
it
mhm.
was still fun play. Titus was funny. Well, not funny, but Titus was fine, I guess, as a dumb character. But I enjoyed some of the moments and like where they went and stuff they did. Um, and it seemed like they had like a more diverse cast of people that you could get more information about. But it just seemed interesting enough to be there. Um, yeah, but I like I said, I only played one. But I think I did want to talk. Well, we'll talk about it next time. But whether or not Persona took their change and ran with it. with some of these games, because I think they did. At least when it comes to completing and fulfilling a more compelling and gameplay story wise, for me. But we'll talk about that another time.
Stay tuned for the next episode of Podcast Z. I'm just playing.
Man, I used to hate when those things come on. I'd be like, bro, we only got 10 minutes of actual footage.
Like, man, he spent 20 minutes powering up. Man, how you gonna say the next episode, man?
We ain't get no fights, no nothing. And talk about what tune in next week. I'm like, bro,
man,
y'all are freaking annoying me.
On the next episode of Dragon Ball Z, Goku's powering up. But man, you just did that for 20 minutes, man. Come on, dude. You gotta
talking about past history, bro. Like, bro, he said I got here with all. I was like, I remember what was I think I was watching. I think the most irritating one had to be Sales, because I was actually really engaged with that one, and I just like, bro, I want to know what happens and what's going on. I think Cell was the really most annoying one for me. I don't think it was any. I think that's the only time I was really watching the show. Every other time I watch reruns, but when I was watching Cell's fight, I actually was literally watching it with my uncle, and I remember watching it every week. But every other time, I just watch reruns.
Cell, boy, the boys waited for 10 days. They had them fillers in between. There's Goku and Gohan running around Super Saiyan just doing random tasks.
Yeah, that was the most annoying. I was like, y'all need to get to the Cell fight already, man. What's going on?
Goku solving puzzles.
Yeah, man. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. I want to thank you guys for listening. As usual, I will be trying to put more content up on my page, but as of now, I'm enjoying doing the podcast. But I don't know, just haven't had enough time. Well, I did have time. I just been doing other stuff. Like I said, I watch Cobra Kai. People, I binged that in a day, so that's where my time at right now. But anything y'all want to say before we go?
No. Go play Kingdom Hearts 2, Deontay, so we can talk about that.
Yeah, that's another.
I go hop on that too.
That's another task. Well, all right, people. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you guys next week.